You are Locked On Wolves POSTCAST, part of Locked On Minnesota on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Anthony Edwards makes his return for the Wolves, but the Wolves look sloppy tonight. Rebounding, turnovers, transition points. It was all no bueno in the second half. 137-114. That's your final in New York tonight. Wolves dropped to 4-4 on the year. What's happening? Back in the lab, back at it. Another T-Wolves postcast. If you're new here, thanks for joining. One-stop shop. All your Timberwolves instant reaction deep dive after each and every game. That's Jack Borman. Get to know him, Wolves expert, NBA expert. Give him a follow on X at GRBorman13. I'm Luke Inman at Luke_Spinman. And of course, you got to follow Ben Beacon, host of the Locked On Timberwolves show each and every day. Find all the video on the Locked On Wolves YouTube channel, on all the audio wherever you find your podcast, of course. Lots to get into, Jack. Return of Anthony Edwards, how he looked coming back from that tweak hammy, plus where it kind of all went wrong in the second half. But first, just off the top, like we always do, I'm looking at the box score here. Wolves were up 4 at halftime, right? They got Ant back. Life was kind of good at that point, and then the wheels fall off after a 40-28 third quarter. Offensive rebounding for the Knicks, that is. Turnovers for the Wolves. A lot of points in transition. Just made it feel like the Wolves did not play up to their potential, despite some nice individual performances. Start with just the return of Ant, though, I guess. Much quicker return, by the way, than what we all kind of anticipated originally. How'd he look in your eyes, and what kind of impact did he have on the outcome of this game?
Yeah, for sure. I think we've seen Ant, when he's come back from injuries a few different times throughout his career, just not really look super confident in his body. And this was certainly an example of that. It just didn't look like he had the same burst and didn't want to try to attack downhill as frequently as we had come to see from him in his first few games of the season. He virtually made no impact beyond making a few threes outside the first quarter, where he played point guard with the starting unit, initiated a lot of the offense, and looked pretty good doing that in the first few minutes of the game, but was a minus 25 in his 29 minutes, worst of any player in the game tonight. And yeah, it's just hard to win a game when you give your opponent so many shots, right? The Wolves minus 19 in field goal attempts in this game. Knicks got up 102 to the Wolves 83. And it's basically impossible to win a game in today's NBA when you give up 60 combined points off turnovers plus second chance points. Yeah. Just opportunities that you're gift wrapping to your opponent. The Wolves had 17 turnovers for 29 Knicks points, and they allowed 21 offensive rebounds for 31 second chance points, which is about as bad as it gets in an NBA game. And when you look at the Wolves tonight, they had a defensive rebounding rate, so they only secured 51.2% of the available defensive rebounds tonight. For reference, the worst mark in the NBA is 63.5%, and league average is about 69%. So just not a good effort there on the glass. The Wolves 31 second chance points allowed equals the most they allowed in any game last season. It was just the second time, or they allowed 26 or more second chance points just 2 times all year last year. So it was a pretty bad mark when you look back, not just this year, but also last year. And then, we'll get into it a little bit later on, but the Nas minutes at the 5 continue to be a problem. And then the Knicks at the rim tonight was a huge reversal for them from what they've been all season long. They were 31 of 39 at the rim tonight, about 80% for 62 paint points. That's the most the Timberwolves have allowed in a game all year. That's well above the Knicks average of 41 points per game, which was third worst in the league coming into tonight. So they were last in the league at shooting percentage at the rim at 59%. And they were a middle of the pack team in terms of how often they took shots at the rim, about 27 rim attempts per game. They were well above that at 39 tonight, which is a really bad mark for an NBA team. So Wolves just couldn't defend without, containing on the perimeter, which resulted to a lot of overhelping, offensive rebounds, and then the offensive end, they turned it over too much. So, it was a bummer. Spoiled what was a really, really fun first half in New York.
I know you just rattled off about 6-7 things that went wrong, but, Jack, besides all that, pretty good. pretty good. Let's get into the
It was a very fun first half to watch. No question.
No doubt about that.
Time to reveal where the game was won or lost. It's the turning point.
Again, Wolves up 4 at halftime. Can't emphasize enough. Great first half. Loved it. ESPN got all the bells and whistles going on. But again, third quarter, wheels start to fall off. Everything crumbles. Jalen Brunson, quiet in the first half. He goes loco. He gets his like he always does. But when was that one moment, that one kind of sequence of events, maybe one time frame that you remember that made you feel like this is going in the wrong way and fast?
Yeah, no question about it. It was when Karl Anthony Towns made his lone three of the game. That was a trailer at about the 8-minute mark. It started a 17-5 run for the Knicks that allowed them to go up 10. During that time, the Wolves just couldn't contain anything on the perimeter. The Knicks went on to score 28 points in the final 7 minutes and change. And 16 of those points were off turnovers or second chances. So we talked about those 60 points overall from the game, and 16 of those 60 came in a 7-minute spurt. And the Knicks were 9 of 12 at the rim in that third quarter, and then they ran very well off stops. There were a couple bunnies that the Wolves missed, which was problematic. A lot of people tend to think that missed 3-point shots are what caused the most amount of runouts going the other way, but it's honestly shots that you miss at the rim, especially when guys end up on the ground. And then you have numbers going the other way. So, the Wolves hit a few threes to kind of stem the tide at times. And it just wasn't enough to cover up what was pretty poor play for them on the defensive end of the floor, and in allowing 40 points in that third quarter. And it sure felt like it. But yeah, it was just tough that the wheels came off pretty quickly there in the third quarter.
This is the Locked On Player of the Game.
Usually save these for after a victory, after a win, but tonight's just total game MVP, between both teams. And then if I made you pick one, if you got to pick one for the Wolves, four players, four players in double digits tonight. Who are they and why?
Yeah, for me, it would be Julius Randle for sure. I mean, it's his fourth 30-point game in his last 6 outings. He continues to look.
That's crazy, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, Julius looks, he was a guy that felt he was much more in the, high teens, low 20s, and was more of a playmaker last year. And I think, relied more on guys like Nas and Mike and Dante to try to take shots. But he's really just been the offensive engine. And I think they need this version of Julius to continue to play how he's played, even with Ant back in the lineup. Mm-hmm. And, for him, not only has he been scoring, we talked about it with Jaden in the last show, that it's really difficult to scale up your game, but do so really efficiently and still focus your game in the areas that, you're really strong at, you're really efficient at, the areas in the floor that you like to score the most from. I think for Julius and for Jaden, they've both continued to do that. And he hasn't been pressing really at all. And I think at times last season, we saw Julius press and resulted in some turnovers that were frustrating and kind of stopped the flow. But I mean, he's really was the only guy who had any juice off the dribble tonight. And most of what he did was in the flow of the offense. And I thought even when he got into isolation, I mean, I know the numbers are, pretty small sample size because it's early on this season, but he's been one of the best isolation players in terms of points per isolation in the entire league this year. He was really good last year in both ISOs and post-up situations. And I think they just need every ounce of what Julius has been giving them. So I think for him to continue to play really well, and the Timberwolves continue to play through him quite a bit in the half court, even with Ant back and Ant taking on a little bit more of a point guard role, that also allowed Dante to just continue to shoot the piss out of the ball.
No doubt.
Was awesome. So I hope they continue to do that here, even as Ant kind of ramps back up.
Yeah, well said there. Plenty more deep dive from this one, including the bench getting beat up, getting bullied tonight. That's all coming up right after this. Quick reminder, tonight's episode brought to us by Monarch Money. You ever check your bank account and go, where did my money go? Dining out, online shopping, entertainment, so easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Not just another budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, spending, all in one place. So you stop just managing your money, and instead you still building some wealth. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your entire first year. This episode also brought to us by Prize Picks. Without a doubt, most fun I have playing daily fantasy, because you can win up to 25 times your money this NBA season, and why I love it. So easy to play. All you got to do, you select 2 or more players and project more or less on any given stat that night. They got so many options in there: 3-pointers, points, rebounds, assists, you name it, they got it. Plus, Prize Picks now offers Apple Pay, quick and easy deposits into your account all season long. Right now, go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. Use the code LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. That's promo code LockedOnNBA at prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. You're getting a 100% bonus match up to $100. Last but certainly not least, this episode is brought to us by Built. Nobody likes paying rent, but if you gotta, you might as well get something for it. That's where Built comes in. They're changing the game by turning your rent into rewards you can actually use when you pay rent through Built. You're in flexible points that can be redeemed towards hundreds of hotels, airlines, future rent payment, your next Lyft ride, and more. You name it, they got it. Turn your rent into rewards. Start making points around your neighborhood by going to joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNBA. That's joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNBA. Use the link so they know we sent you. All right, Jack, before we get into what we'll be talking about, just some quick hitters. I've been kind of thinking about in the back of my mind, the bench, man. Wolf, not often. I personally, I don't know about you, feel like this leaving a game, but between Naz Reid, Mike, and then Rob, just not really getting your money's worth out of that trio right now. And then I guess part 2, and I'm sure a lot of this has to do with Ant coming back, obviously, but just some different rotations out there we haven't seen or maybe not used to. I just wanted your quick kind of 2 cents knee-jerk reaction on that as well.
Yeah, we'll start with rotation for Ant. Ant normally plays the entire first quarter, half the second quarter, the entire third quarter, and most of the fourth quarter. But tonight, Ant was the first guy who checked out along with Rudy Gobert, and then checked back in before the end of the first quarter with Rudy. So it was very clear that the Wolves were trying to play him in shorter, kind of 7-minute spurts. He played, basically played, let's call it, three kind of 7-minute spurts, and then a 6-minute burst in the fourth quarter. And I think you wonder if that kind of messes with Ant's rhythm a little bit, just because he's a guy who's used to playing longer. Obviously we can't hear Finch talk right now, but I did think that was noticeable. And what they did was in those non-Rudy minutes in the first quarter, they were able to get not only Jaden McDaniels out there, but also Jalen Clark out there, which I thought was an interesting way to try to address that. So they did that a couple of different times in this game, but didn't do it for enough of a prolonged stretch in the third quarter, which is something that I think they might need to try to start addressing. But yeah, I mean, for the Wolves, it was an 8.5-man rotation with Rob Dillingham being that kind of half guy. Because the Wolves do not have TJ Shannon tonight, who missed the game with he's a game day downgrade with left foot soreness. So hopefully it's a short-term absence from TJ, because they certainly could have used his kind of spark in a game that got up and down pretty quickly. But yeah, I mean, the bench in this game just got destroyed. They lost 53-26, and when Mike Conley is leading the team in bench scoring at 8 points, that's just not. It's not going to get it done. I mean, Naz Reid, Mike Conley, and Rob Dillingham are 19% of the team's salary cap, and it just does not seem like they've been producing at 19% of this team's output. And I think they need those guys to produce, more than that 19%. Given the way that this bench is constructed, and I think when you look at Naz, he's had some really strong offensive outings in the last few games, but really struggled on both ends of the floor in this game. Just 5 points on 7 shots, was a -19. And so for Naz to struggle, if he's going to struggle off the bench, it's just tough, because are you really going to ask Rob Dillingham to go out there and take a lot of shots? You're going to ask Jalen Clark to take a lot of shots. I mean, Mike Conley's really only taking shots if they're wide open. So I think that's just an issue that is tough for the Wolves. And I mean, you could say, okay, well, they're pretty pot committed. Okay, well, look at the Knicks. The Knicks are just as pot committed, at least financially, as the Wolves are, yet they're still getting really good bench production. I mean, Josh Hart, 18 points, Miles McBride, Deuce McBride, 14 points, shot it pretty well from outside. And that's even with, Jordan Clarkson not having, a particularly aggressive night offensively, but he still gave you 7 points coming off of, back-to-back 15-point outings from him. And so they just have a lot of different guys that they feel comfortable plugging and playing. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens with that bench and if it's just going to be a roller coaster ride for a little bit here.
This is what you'll be talking about.
Kind of touched on this already here, maybe a good segue, but the thing is here, Jack, I don't know if it's tonight, tomorrow, whenever it is, at some point, got to sit down, have an honest conversation about what these non-Rudy minutes look like, right? Kind of like you already touched on, but if you just go off tonight, I'm not going to say it's unplayable, right? Too harsh, right? But it's just not a winning formula right now. And teams are clearly, they get it. They know how to exploit it. These other opposing teams, coaches, you name it, they're not dumb at this point. What's kind of your 2 cents on where we're at now, what we're sitting at right now after a game like this? And then what's the possible solution, I guess, what that looks like?
Yeah, it's really tough because it's just been a consistent kind of hemorrhaging of points at the rim, especially with Rudy not out there. And I know, with Nas, he's been a guy who's been a versatile defender, for this Timberwolves team the last couple of years, and it certainly has not been this bad on the defensive end of the floor. And so tonight, again, with Nas Reed on the floor, Rudy Gobert off the floor, in those 15 minutes, the Knicks won 46-33. They put up 46 points in 15 minutes. It's a defensive rating of 153.3. For reference, the league average is about 114.5, and the worst team in the NBA, the Brooklyn Nets, is 128.5. And we saw that Nets defense the other night. So it's just horrible. And then the Timberwolves defensive rebounding percentage in those minutes was 45%. So the Timberwolves grabbed less than half of the available missed shots of the Knicks to be able to grab off the boards. And the league average there is about 69%. The worst team in the league is 63.5%. And for reference, it was bad with Rudy on the floor too. It was 57% with Rudy on the floor. So it was still terrible. But I think, at least they did a little bit better job of, of defending with Rudy out there. The defensive rating with Rudy out there tonight was 136.5. So it's not like it was much better, but I think that's something they got to address. They just spent a first round pick on, Yohan Beringer, and obviously they didn't really expect him to be a guy that they needed to play rotation minutes for this season. But I think, again, like if you get into a playoff series where the Timberwolves are really struggling in those non-Rudy minutes, like you've got to be able to push a button. And I just don't know that button is ever going to get pushed with Beringer in a playoff series unless we see it a little bit in the regular season. So I personally would like to see a little bit more of Beringer than maybe Rob Dillingham is that half guy at the end of the rotation right now, just to see if he can help address that problem. But for now, I think the Wolves are going to have to lean into the offense, right, in those minutes. And the Wolves tonight, first time this season, they got up 43s in a game, and they averaged shooting 43s.
Which is what you've been banging the table for, by the way.
For sure. They averaged 43s a game last season, which was fifth most in the league. And they're taking just 34 this game, which is bottom 10 in the league. Despite ranking, they're third in 3-point percentage at 40% as a team is amazing. Yeah. And they shot 47.5% tonight, 19 of 40. And Dante DiVincenzo, you got to give him a shout out. I know there were some comments in the chat earlier about how Ant's not a point guard. I don't think this team really views anybody as like a traditional point guard and how they want to get into things. I thought actually when Ant was handling the ball and initiating the offense, they got a lot of good sets that they got into, and they had a lot of good shot attempts coming out of those sets. So and it allows Dante to just kind of be a gunner, on the wing and in the corners. Is shot 5 of 11 from 3. He was 4 of 5 in that second quarter alone. It was his third straight game with 5 made threes and 7th straight game with at least 3 made threes. So I think they got to lean into just empowering Dante as a guy that can really shoot it. That's what he did when he was in New York. And I just think anything the Timberwolves can do to increase their 3-point rate, especially with Ant back now, is going to be really important, because that's going to be what, how you make up some of the math of turning it over a little too much and allowing offensive rebounds, at least until they can get their defense with Rudy off the floor figured out. So we'll see what happens, but not a great showing in the second half for the Wolves. But the good news is you go look at their schedule over the next week and a half, 2 weeks into Thanksgiving, and it's pretty easy. So we'll see what happens.
Well, that's the good news. They have shown they can beat the bad teams anyway so far this year. T-Wolves collapse. They crumble in the second half. Again, sloppy rebounding, defense, turnovers, the hat trick you don't want. 137-114. That's your final. 4-4 now on the year. Much love to all you guys, all the everydayers out there that always make us your first listen, and all you guys coming in the chat with us from game to game. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. Go follow Jack at JR Borman 13. And we'll catch you Friday back at home at the Target Center taking on the Utah Jazz. That's a 7 p.m. tip. Until then, signing off.